Unless you pick Green Bay or Atlanta, it was another safe week in NFL Survivor pools. We'll discuss and debate the 5 games you should be considering for week 4, and it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the fantasy football consultants. Eric, how you doing?
Not good. Not good. In fact, this is always my least favorite show after I pick a team that loses. And Michael, I wish my team I lose just gets blown out, never had a chance to winning, shouldn't have won, but that wasn't the case. Green Bay out. Here's my rant, folks. And for all the people who pick Green Bay, I'm not upset I picked them. I think I had good reasons to pick them, but the NFL, it just takes a couple of key plays to turn it around. They dominated that game, Green Bay's defense at least, that entire game. They were up 10-0 with like 4 minutes left. They held them to a field goal. They're still 10-3. Horrible interception. Then a couple of really terrible key penalties that affected field position and the clock. But it still shouldn't have mattered that they could have made that field goal to get blocked and the Cleveland Browns make a long field goal.
Eric, I feel for you. I was watching that. My son's a Green Bay fan. It was rough. My wife's a Rams fan. Talk about blocked field goals, even worse. You know who took care of business this week, though, Eric?
I was happy.
Your Seattle Seahawks. I don't think I broke a sweat watching that game.
No, it was like 35-3 before we could blink. My
Yes.
gosh.
So, yeah,
So
there you have
good
it.
for you. So here's the challenge. So like someone with me, if Green Bay had pulled that out, might be so stressed and I want an easy week. You just had an easy week. So do you take a chance or you go the easy route? So let's take a look at the games because it's truly a Sophie's choice of do you want to give up a ton of future value and have what should be a safe week or do you want to go out on a limb? Here we go. Buffalo is the obvious big favorite, 15.5 point favorites at home. That's massive over the New Orleans Saints. Detroit on the road, 8.5 at Cleveland. Denver, 7.5 point favorites at home against the Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals. Houston's a 7 point favorite over Tennessee, and the LA Chargers at the New York Giants. Michael, let's start with Detroit because I want to get this whole Green Bay out of me. So how can I sit here and go, you know what? You got a team that is looking very strong this year. Why not pick them even though on the road against Cleveland and they're 8.5 point favorites? This is identical to the Green Bay game. Wow, let's talk about it. Detroit has a better offense than Green Bay, but a far worse defense. Don't forget, Detroit got crushed by Green Bay earlier this year. And Michael, they seem to be, even though they just finished beating on Monday night Baltimore on the road. In general, Detroit is a better team in the dome at home.
Yeah, no, you're right. Now, I just finished watching that game and they looked phenomenal. Their offensive line was great. They had 4 rushing touchdowns, 200 plus yards on the ground, and their defense kept Lamar Jackson bottled up. They looked really good. Hayden Hutchinson was moving around. Play calling looked pretty good, but the game was close for most of the game. And so it's in Cleveland. It's in Cleveland. Cleveland's at home 2 games in a row. Detroit's away 2 games in a row. Detroit has this shorter week. Do I think Cleveland's going to win this game? No, but didn't think they had a chance against Green Bay. I think I stay away from this game. Doesn't make sense to go with Detroit this week. And Detroit has some future value, so why not save them for the future? Not a ton of future value, but obviously a good team. And when they're rolling, stay away from this week. That's what I think. What do you think?
Well, I want to comment about their future value. They host the New York Giants. Week 14, they host Dallas, and week 16, they host Pittsburgh. Now, notice those are the teens, so it's not soon. But if they can stay relatively healthy, those are much better games. I still don't think Cleveland's a great team, but they do have a good defensive line. that really did bother Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs. So if they can create some turnovers and things, they can make this be a difficult game for Detroit. Do you want to put your survivor life on Detroit? Oh, you don't. I'm asking the audience. All right. So I want to talk about the next two games. We've got Denver 7.5 over Cincinnati and Houston 7 over Tennessee. Let's have a discussion about which of these two games we think we're more confident with, and then we'll then disclose whether we feel comfortable picking either of them as our survivor pick. Who would you like to start talking about?
Well, I feel a little more comfortable with Denver than Houston. Both these teams are at home. They both play a little bit better at home, especially Denver. I think they're a lot better at home. Denver looked pretty good against the Chargers, who are a good team. But, Bo Nix has looked, mediocre the last couple weeks. They did get R.J. Harvey moving a little bit, and Cortland Sutton had a great game. This Denver defense is great, and Cincinnati is not playing good football right now, even though they're 2-1. They looked really bad. Jake Browning came back down to earth, after he had a nice finish the week before, really was exploited. Denver should win this game, but Denver's not a great team. In fact, in the power rankings, in some power rankings, Cincinnati's ranked just slightly higher than Denver. I don't know if that has
Yeah.
the update from this last week. But I can't say that Denver should blow out since I'm surprised it's a 7 point line. I'm not surprised that they're picked to win. And I think they will win. But I feel better about them than Houston, who's not
Well,
much better ranked than Tennessee. Go ahead.
look, let me talk about that Denver game. So, that's absurd. Winning power ranking that's showing Cincinnati greater than Denver just hasn't been updated, is my only thought. Cincinnati, we already knew, did not have a good defense. Last year, they stayed in the game by simply outscoring their opponents. And without Joe Burrow, they just are not as effective in doing that. And neither of us think Minnesota's that strong. Minnesota had a backup quarterback and a backup running back with Aaron Jones also out, and they just demolished them. I mean, Michael, is that because Minnesota is really that good, or is Cincinnati that bad?
It's not because Minnesota's that good, but there were a couple things that happened in that game that made it a little bit fluky. And Minnesota had to get a win, and they did, right? And so there's a little bit of that as well. And I think Jake Browning was exploited this last week. Can he come back and have a little bit better week with the weapons that they have? I think so, but the Cincinnati defense is not that good. And so, Denver should win this game at home, but Denver's not going to put up a lot of points against anyone. This isn't going to be a 35-14 game. It's going to be a 24-17 game, which I guess is 7 points, but it's going to be close. Unless there's some turnovers that go Denver's way, and they can do that obviously because they're a great defensive team.
Sometimes an emergency backup that comes in the game can do well. Teams didn't have a chance to scout them and prepare for them. But when you have a whole week to prepare for them, and you start to get game film on them, it makes it easier. All right. Well, because of my lack of confidence in Cincinnati, gives me a little little more hope for Denver. Let's talk about the Houston 7 points over Tennessee. In Survivor, you want to pick on a team who has a young quarterback who at best has been up and down, and whose team has had 3 losses. They're 0-3 this year. Wait a minute. We've got both teams that are in that situation. Houston is 0-3. Usually you're not going to have a survivor pick who has not won yet. Full disclosure, Houston and Tennessee has played similar competition, and Houston has lost by an average of 4 points and Tennessee by 14 points. So no question about it. Houston's the better team. Houston's at home. But do you want to put your survivor on life on Houston this week, Michael?
I don't. I think Houston's not clicking yet. CJ Stroud is, kind of having the sophomore slump thus far. Mixon's not anywhere to be seen. This defense is a strong defense, and DeMeco Ryans is a strong defensive minded coach. If they can get, Nick Chubb moving now that they got Christian Kirk going at the receiver side, they should be able to stay ahead of what appears to be a pretty lost Tennessee team. Um, I just think Cam Ward is not ready for the NFL yet, and unfortunately, he's been put in the situation where he's got to, be ready right away.
I hesitate to say this because I do not think they're anywhere as good as my team, the Seattle Seahawks. But this is a little bit like week 3 Seattle pick. You've got a team that has very little future value in Houston, and they're favored by around a touchdown, similar to way Seattle was at home against a weak opponent. So I'll let people decide what they're going to do. I'm going to comment about my suggestions at the end of the show. Let's move on to LA Chargers and the New York Giants. Man, the LA Chargers, Michael, have swept the AFC West, beating all of their division rivals. They've been looking pretty good, and the Giants have not looked good. Their offense has really struggled unless they have played the porous Dallas defense. Otherwise, they have really struggled. How do you break down this game? Does the Giants have a chance?
No, they don't. If you watched that game last night, you saw that Russell Wilson, who really had a gimme of a game against Dallas, and so had what the second best offensive numbers of his career against a porous defense, and maybe a team that's not even playing very hard right now in Dallas. And then he played against the Kansas City defense that is good and needed to win, yes, and he looked atrocious. And you could say, well, Tyron Tracy got hurt. Did that hurt? No, Scatterbo had a fine game. Malik Neighbors did not get the ball. They could not get the ball to him. And the Chargers look great. I know it took till the end of the game for them to win that game, but their defense looks strong with Matlock and Derwin James in the back. And Keenan Allen's come back to life to be alongside Lad McConkey. And Justin Herbert's, a very good quarterback, and he's got a running back who's finally getting the rock a sufficient way. This Chargers team, you saw that the Giants being at home, did not make a difference, and I don't think it will again this week. I think the Chargers should take care of business. This Chargers team, I think, is here to stay. Now they have some games in the future that you can pick on, and they'll be home for those games. And the Giants, maybe even I don't know. I think the Giants. I think they're weak.
Yeah, probably the most compelling reason to stay away from picking the Chargers this week is that future value. Specifically in week 9, which is not very far, they host New Orleans. There's future value and then there's really future value. If you look at week 9, and I encourage everyone to do that, this is by far the best game. So if you possibly can bring yourself to save the Chargers to week 9, and if you get there, you'll be glad that you did. Well, look, if you just want to win this week, the compelling team pick is the Buffalo Bills, 15.5 point favorites over New Orleans. Look, they're going to win. And I say that with the caveat of any given Sunday, anybody can beat anybody. But if there was a sure thing in the NFL, this is about the closest thing to it. Buffalo is coming off basically a mini bye, playing on Thursday. They are playing a New Orleans team that just got embarrassed by a Seattle team that's nowhere near as good as this Buffalo team. So I'm not going to talk much about it. I'll let you chime in any other way. I'm confident if you go with Buffalo, you'll obviously get a win for this week.
Yeah, no, New Orleans worst team in the league right now. I think pretty clearly Buffalo, top 2, 3 teams in the league playing well at home, many by, nothing else really to say. I think this is a strong win. I will put a little word out there. I know it's a bad taste in your mouth, but for Green Bay, they're at home this week against Dallas. Dallas, I think really looks bad. CeeDee Lamb is going to be out this week. What does that mean for their offense? I think it means that they're not going to have as much success. Their defense is horrible, but unfortunately, I don't think Green Bay's, able to put up a lot of points. So I'm kind of surprised that I think that there are a couple areas that line is ticking up and maybe a little bit higher than this Chargers Giants game by now. So that's a game to pay attention to. And if you're live, you didn't pick Green Bay, so you could pick Green Bay this week. And I feel actually pretty good about that. I think Dallas is worse, maybe not than Tennessee, but than some of these other teams that we're talking about.
Are they worse than Cleveland? Because apparently Green Bay couldn't handle that. Because they're on the road again, right? They're at
Oh, it's in Green Bay. The game's in Green Bay.
oh, it's back in Green Bay. Okay, we're playing Dallas without CD Lamb. I'll give you the biggest argument in the world to pick Green Bay. That there is whatever force out there in survivor pools that really likes to make fun of me. And for Green Bay to come back with a big, easy win against Dallas after I just picked them, typical. Uh, so let's get into it. Let's talk about what our pick is. And I'll go first. Um, Michael, I think it is simply a tale. You cannot make a pick this week without looking at next week. So I stand by what I said for the last 2 or 3 shows. You should pick Buffalo in week 3, 4, or 5. But I told you if you can wait, don't pick them in week 3. Don't pick them, and now you have a choice week 4 or week 5. So that's your decision. Look in detail at week 5. Decide because week 5's tough. What are your 2 picks? That you think you'll make for this week and for next week. By the way, Michael, next week the buys start, so a lot less games to choose from. So if you if you pick Buffalo and take the easy route this week, next week you can't pick Buffalo, who hosts New England. You are left with Baltimore hosting Houston. This is now I'm giving you the spreads, everybody, for the next week, week 5. Which, man, I hate to waste Baltimore on an opponent that's it's so good against Houston, especially the way Baltimore played against Detroit today. Arizona, only if you haven't used them. A lot of people have used Arizona in week 1 or 2. Is hosting Tennessee. And Minnesota, oh, Michael, Minnesota is playing at, you know where? Cleveland. And it's very hard for me to argue. So you have to decide if you like any of those games. Do you want to go Buffalo in one of those games? Or do you want to pick one of the other alternates that we talked about today and then come back next week feeling good about Buffalo hosting New England?
And you do have the Kansas City Jacksonville game in Jacksonville as well next week. So, Kansas City be coming off a game against Baltimore. They may get beat up again, but they should be able to take care of business in Jacksonville. So I feel like Kansas City's going to start coming back to life here.
You sure you're not betting on Kansas City's the name and not because this is a team that historically has been so good. What's their record now? 1-3, is that right?
1-2, you're a little ahead of
What,
yourself,
what,
but
what, one? Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm expecting them to lose this week.
they do have Baltimore in Baltimore. They're at Kansas City this next week, so that'll be an interesting game to watch. I think they've got a good defense. I think Jacksonville's a mediocre team, so I think Kansas City's going to take care of business next week. But yeah, who would I pick next week? I guess I would prefer to have Buffalo available, but it'll be interesting to see what Houston does this week and what Baltimore does against Kansas City, because I think I do feel pretty good about Baltimore at home versus Houston.
Right. So, all right, here's my thing. I don't feel as good as you do for those games. So you got to take a stand one of the next 2 weeks, folks. Okay. So, I think what I am going to, you say Kansas City's at home? So next week?
Kansas City is
It's
at
just
home.
Jacksonville. So the choices are,
Baltimore. Sorry, yeah, that's this week. Next week they're on the road at Jacksonville.
yeah, okay. So the choices are, because I'm not picking Minnesota at Cleveland. So option 1, Buffalo this week, come back with, say, Kansas City at Jacksonville next week. Or, because I really think it's a mistake to burn Baltimore so early. Or I can't in good faith, if you're in any type of long league, especially ones that you have to double up, I can't argue for the LA Chargers given their great week 9 matchup. So it's between Denver and Houston. I would suggest people pick Denver this week and Buffalo next week. Now, some people may not have Denver, like I wouldn't have had Denver. And then I have to go with Houston this week and followed up with Buffalo next week. I say that, Michael, knowing there's a good chance you lose this week. And Buffalo, you wish, why didn't I pick Buffalo? But you're going to have to take that same stand next week.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear what you're saying there. I think for those that, so I'm going to take Buffalo this week, but I think for those that feel like they need Buffalo next week, I think consider that Green Bay game. Took a look at it again.
Oh,
It's pretty
yeah.
clear that CD Lamb is out. I know we didn't talk about it a lot, Eric, but I know you got a sour taste in your mouth for Green Bay. But take a look at that game. It's in Green Bay. Dallas is down. That's an alternative to have
Yep.
to pick Denver, who I'm not feeling great about, or Houston, who similarly not feeling so great about their offense right now.
The biggest thing I want to make sure everybody knows and does is don't just blindly pick Buffalo. This week, please look at both this week and next week and decide what combinations you think you'd be best off. And I wish you guys the best of luck. Remind everybody, if as usual, smash that like button. Share in the comment section who you are going to pick this week and why, and smash that red subscriber button. Until next week, take care, everybody.
Bye bye.